Hello, hello, lovely listeners. We have a very special episode today where hello Ness.
Hello.
Ness and I are going to talk all things business partnership. Now, those of you who have worked with or been in our worlds for a little while would have experienced the amazing partnership that Vanessa and I have. We've worked together officially for the last few years in business together. We've known each other over a number of years in the professional coaching space. There is so much respect and love that we have for each other and our partnership. And we're often asked questions about what actually makes a great business partnership work. And that's what we're dedicating today's episode to. We want to share with you the top 5 things that you need to consider. If you're already in a partnership with somebody, it's about checking in. Do we have these things in place? Or sometimes we get questions from business owners that perhaps are established businesses. They're doing it solo. We know business is tough. It's tough even with a business partner. And they're considering bringing another person in to help run the business. If that's you, then these are the 5 things you need to consider before or whilst you're having these conversations. The other aspect to this is we've seen businesses, again, they might be really established, 10, 20 years in, and you might be looking to merge with another business. So there might be other key stakeholders or key business owners that will be coming to the party. So this is going to be really relevant for you in all of those different key scenarios. So are you ready, Ness, to get into it?
Absolutely. Let's jump in.
Amazing.
So the first area that we want to start with sharing with you today is all about getting on the same page when it comes to the vision that you have for the business. So when Nick and I decided that we would go into business together, we had the luxury of the 2020. Everyone remember 2020? We had the luxury of that year we set aside 2 hours each week. And we'd have conversations, really deep conversations around what's the impact you want to make on the world? What is it that you want to be known for? What are the kind of clients you want to work with? What's the kind of work that you want to do? So really getting more clear around what this shared vision was, because clearly, each of us come with our own personal vision and our own personal driver as to why we want to be in the business we want to be in. We always talk about, for business owners, understanding how the business vision meets and fulfills your personal vision. So we really needed to nut that out together to say, does your vision align with mine and vice versa? And are we working towards the same goal? And that is super, super important. And it has to be the starting point, because if there's a lack of clarity or there's a misunderstanding around what your vision, my vision is, we don't want to be finding that out as we've committed and moved forward and started all the process, the legalities around coming into business together, and making sure that if it's clear for us, it's clearer for our client base as well. So the value of being able to start with vision. And then I think the next most important discussion within this sort of step 1 that needs to happen is not just a vision discussion, but it's also a values discussion. Do you want to talk to that, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got to have that clarity of where are we going, where are we heading, and are we going in the same direction? And a part of what drives that is the values of the individual human being, the individual partner or human beings, if there's more than 2. And, one of the really interesting things, and people know this about us, is that we are quite unique and different in certain ways. We talk about in the business, I'm like the magician, the bigger picture, the vision, you're the architect, you're great at the detail and pulling the pieces together. So we're quite different in that way. And one of the strengths I think we bring is being able to show different perspectives of how you can do something a certain way or do it in your own way, but reach the same outcome. But the important thing, we don't have to be the same, but it's the values that actually create that common thread that builds trust, that builds respect, trust is a big one, because you have to be able to trust your business partner and know no matter what, I mean, that they've got your back. We'll talk about that later, but even trust in the quality of the work or the quality of conversations or the alignment, or, so you don't have to be the same person, but if you've got aligned values, it gives you the freedom to be your unique you, but know that, again, you're going on the same path in a very aligned way. There's more than one way to get to an outcome, but you've got to make sure that there's some kind of common thread. So values allows you to have that freedom of expression, that freedom of, how you are, who you are, all of that. So I really think that values is critical part of this whole vision and values piece. I personally have seen this fall apart. Big businesses coming together, merging, clarity on the vision, acceptance of the uniqueness of how to get there. It might be one strength is people, one strength is process. That's great. But the values, if the values are missing, then everything can fall apart. And that business, if you're an established business that you have put so much blood, sweat, and tears into, because let's face it, if you're established, that has happened, you're risking that. You're actually risking that by handing over. You're the custodian of your business. So who are you letting in to be co-custodian? And for those of you that are maybe looking at, not so established, but starting a new partnership, same kind of thing, you've got to consider this. It's risky if you do not have aligned values. Thoughts, Ness?
Couldn't agree more. And look, for us, we kind of knew that we had shared values because we'd known each other for a little while, but actually stating what they were. And I think the process that we went through when we started to look at, well, what are the values of the business? Because we wanted to bring, us into the business. We wanted to create the business around what we valued, and we wanted to stand for something within the business. So it's not just about shared values around who you are as a person, but then it's coming together and seeing how those get brought together, because that's who we are with our clients. It's who we are in the market. It's our brand. It speaks so much to everybody else to help them understand that's what that business stands for. So I think it's definitely alignment around personal values, which helps with the communication, but also then what are the values of the business, and how do we make sure that we're living that we're demonstrating that when we bring teams on, that they understand, because they actually see the same behavior between both of the directors. It's not that it's not like a mum and dad situation, where you go to mum because you want something, dad's going to say no, or vice versa. You want to be able to be, really strongly aligned. And I think that values is the cushion, probably not the cushion, it's the foundation of making sure that happens. So that's what I would add to that discussion.
Can I just also add to that? Because the thing about this is then it kind of takes away from, we've got to have a script, we're speaking from the same script, inverted commas, but you don't have to speak from the same script. You just speak and it will be aligned because the values are there, personal and business. And I think that's a good distinction there as well.
Fabulous. Well, the second one that we wanted to share was this whole 49-51 split. And when I was first introduced to, I can't even remember where I heard it from the first time, but it just made so much sense. And I've shared this with many clients that we worked with who have a business partnership. And I think for each of them, it's been as amazingly like a blinding flash of the obvious as it was for me when I first heard about it. So this 49-51 is about saying that there are certain things in the business that one of the directors will have more say in or have the final word in than the other. Of course, within a business, the big rocks, the big decisions need to be a 50-50, and you choose what they are. So when it comes to our business, if we were to change direction, or if we were to start, offering a different service, we need a 50-50 agreement on that. But there's so many other hats that we wear in our business, right? You've got marketing, you've got sales, you've got outsourcing, you've got team leadership, like that. Just there's so many different areas that you can come together. Hey, finance, yes, that you can come together and it wastes a lot of time if the two of you have to be in agreement of everything. And let's face it, finance being one of the examples, not everybody wants to be across everything in that. So we play to strengths, and we play to the areas that we have interest in, and we set up a structure that says, well, Nikki's opinion is really important, and it's important I consider that when I'm hiring a VA or when I'm deciding which software to use for our cloud-based software. However, the end result sits with me. So I get the 51 on that, and I make the final decision, and we move forward. And the same, like Nick, you do a lot of the the marketing focus, the website, who we work with that. My input's important, but you make the final call. And it's just become such a great way of working together, where we don't have to have that discussion every time. And look, I can't even actually think of a time where it hasn't worked, but if it didn't, then that becomes a discussion around, I think we need to bump this back up to a 50-50. It just makes it so much easier and clearer. And of course, it's identifying. So writing the list, which we did, sort of like we said, yep, that's you're 51 on that, I'm 49, and vice versa. So you actually have something to come back to. It's not just decided in the moment, oh, I thought I was 51. Nope, I was 51. So this 49, 51.
I'll go get that expensive bottle of champagne because aren't I 51 on the finances?
No. So absolutely. There. So 49, 51, it's very, very powerful.
Yeah.
What about the next one, Nick?
Look, I mean, that really leads into, it's this clarity of expectation, isn't it? The other thing I'd say about the 49-51, and I think this has only happened once for us. I remember we had I'll say robust because it's passionate conversation in the car, maybe driving back from Gippsland to Melbourne. It was only, I can't even remember what it was about, maybe SEO or marketing. But when you get to, like, again, you both have those are it's the realization. The penny dropped. Because we're both so passionate, we have opinions in all areas of our business, and I do love finance. I'm just joking with all this, but it's taken a while. You can still be passionate, but when you get to that stalemate, that's the other thing where it's like, well, I really believe this, because we've established the 49-51 based on expertise, experience, passion, strengths, whatever it might be. There's a trust that at the end of the day, and I remember you saying to me in the car, Nick, at the end of the day, it's your call. I can't remember what we decided on, but I was like, oh, okay, this is where it really comes into play because, we're passionate business owners and we do see a vision. So that's another really good a benefit of 49-51. And 49-51 really lends itself to point number 3, where we've got to have clarity around the expectations of who's doing what. And a really great way, and something I think was wonderful that we did in the early days, was actually created a partnership agreement. We didn't create it ourselves, but we sought the correct advice from accountants, lawyers, and we had a partnership agreement put in place. Because as much as Ness and I loved each other then and love each other now, and relationships, it's growing in the friendship, we don't know what's going to happen. And this isn't, yes, we're friends, that's wonderful, but it also at the end of the day, when we're in business together, it's a business partnership. So we've got to have the structure, I guess, in place, or it's taking care of business. It's taking care of each of us. Like in that partnership agreement, it states what's going to happen if things don't work out the way that we wanted to, or if one person loves it, the other one wants out, or whatever it might be. Now, that's not something we foresee, but we're prepared for that. It's a smart thing to do. So we haven't just gone, yay, let's go into partnership. It'll be all fine. Hopefully it will be, but be smart about this, get some advice, and make sure you have a solid partnership agreement in place. There might be grace periods. Again, your unique circumstance will determine what this is. Is it a merger? Is it an established business that you're bringing somebody in? And there's a lot of considerations. Or like Ness and I, you might already have established businesses, but this is a new one that you're creating. So really make sure it's not personal. You have an external person that's also driving this. It's all about business, and you've got such clarity of expectations, and you can put in the partnership agreement the 49-51. You can then go back every year or so and revisit it to make sure it's still relevant and up to date. I think that's a really smart thing to do.
And I back that up. I was working with some clients that were in conflict. And so they were at the point where their conflict was so intense that they were both willing to walk away, but they couldn't afford to because they had a loan for the business. So they had to find a way to work together. Now, the challenge was they didn't have a partnership agreement. So because they went into business and they were friends and it was going great until it wasn't. And this is where it can come unstuck, because had they had that to come back to when you're in conflict and the emotions are intense, you're not necessarily thinking clearly. Whereas when you start a business, you go through all the different scenarios. Like Nikki said, we went through, well, if somebody wants to leave, how many holidays are we going to take? You don't want to go into business necessarily with someone who thinks 6 months a year is great. What are the expectations around working hours? All of that kind of stuff. So when you preempt it, it brings you back to, well, we're both pretty rational when we came up with that. And now that we're in conflict, we can't see eye to eye. So important. And that actually lends us to the next key point that we want to make in relation to communication and relationship. Because in this scenario where I came in to be able to help them resolve the conflict in the business so that they could move forward, and they're still in business. This is like 3 or 4 years later, which is fabulous. But communication breaks down when things break down because communication breaks down, right? So it's the difficult conversations. Anyone can have a partnership when things are going great. It's like, yeah, high five, let's get that champagne out and celebrate. But when times are tough, and when we're in business, times can be tough, it's around being vulnerable and being willing to share what's really going on and speaking up and finding your voice. And there have been moments in time with sweaty armpits where, I've had to have a conversation with Nick and vice versa that feels uncomfortable, that I don't want to hurt her feelings, but I'm upset about something, or, there could be just a feeling that I have around particular work we're doing or whatever direction, whatever it is. But being able to actually say, I need to discuss this with you. We need to create the space to talk about this really heavy, uncomfortable thing. And what our experience has been, every time that's happened, it's been such a brilliant opportunity to strengthen our partnership, to strengthen our friendship, and to strengthen the business, because the issues are being dealt with, and we're not in a position in time to come where we're, saying over dinner to our family, and building resentment up, which sometimes happens in relationships where you don't talk up, that resentment comes in and then it falls apart, which is what I saw in this business I came in to help, was that they weren't able to start the conversation around how they really felt. And what that meant was they just got further and further and further away. And it was so much harder to be able to come back and have open conversations without the safety of having an external person like myself there to mediate. So it matters so much. And these skills, no matter what your business is, these skills of being able to speak up, state your needs, talk about things that are uncomfortable. We see it with leaders that we work with who are stressed about difficult conversations. We see it with clients who might have a customer challenge where they need to have a difficult conversation. It happens everywhere. So you've got to lead the way in a partnership, particularly, and even more so if you have team, because one of the things that happened in this particular business that I worked with, their turnover was so high because people didn't want to be there because it was so toxic. And it wasn't the fact that they screamed at each other, it was just the tenseness in the room when they were in the room together. So it's the everything else is really important, but the continuation of the business, sustainability of the business has to come down to that ability to communicate, ability to be honest, and that relationship that needs nurturing. It's like any other relationship that's significant in our lives. We need to nurture it, and we need to be honest, and we need to speak about how we're feeling in order for that relationship to be given every possible scenario to thrive. Did you want to add anything to that, Nikki?
Yeah, and I think what I think of when you talk through that is when we avoid things, they get bigger, which is what happened in the example. So as hard as it is now to lean into that discomfort, it will get harder. But really, when we avoid things, anything in life, it becomes bigger than Ben-Hur. So it's a really good reminder to lean into that discomfort. And I think the other thing around this partnership, this relationship, this communication, we were talking earlier about the fact that business partnership, it's a partnership. We think about life partners. There's so much that we can take from our life partner relationships, marriages, romantic, whatever it might be, because you're creating something together. It's a big deal. So that's why this relationship piece really matters. And when you're able to lean into that discomfort, the sweaty armpits, the sweaty palms, whatever it might be, like, absolutely, we've had those experiences. And absolutely, it creates a stronger relationship. What it also allows us to do is to have each other's back. Because sometimes it's the open, honest vulnerability. Maybe it's feedback around something that's not working. Maybe it's a process. Maybe it's something that we've observed, but it could also be how we're feeling, that vulnerability of how we're feeling. And I know in the past, I've had that feeling and shared with you as well. And at first I'm like, I don't know, I don't want to put that pressure on you. I don't want to let you down. Should I? But it's like, of course I have to. This is a partnership. So when I have, not only have we grown stronger and the business grown stronger, you were able to support me and have my back, and vice versa. And that is critical because, again, we're partners in this. So really think about that when you're going into a partnership, or when you are in a partnership. How do you have each other's backs? In what way? Because it doesn't have to be equal 50-50. There's going to be times where one will have to step up more than the other. And how fortunate that we're able to do that for each other.
It's amazing. It is one of the things I love about being in partnership and not doing business solo, is to know that there's somebody in my corner all the time, no matter what's going on, and that I can give that back. So this opportunity that we get to grow the relationship and to really communicate as just being such a personal benefit as well as the business benefit. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
So
would you recommend it? Would you recommend it if you've got these 5 things in place? Now, the 5th one is, sounds a bit unsexy, structure. And what we mean by that, let's finish on a good one. What we mean by that is, it's kind of similar to what we talked about with the partnership agreement. Don't just go into this like honeymoon phase and it's all going to be beautiful and roses. Think about the structure that you have to be able to check in. Now, you probably have, and hopefully you have in your business, if you don't, side podcast, structure in your business around operating rhythms, weekly team meetings, those sorts of things, check-ins with the team, coaching, one-on-one, et cetera, et cetera. But what you have to make sure is that you strategically also have partnership meetings. Now, this can be done in a way that is maybe, I'd say, at least monthly, if not weekly or fortnightly. Maybe it's over a cup of coffee, maybe you have it really informal, or maybe it's over a glass of wine. Preset the agenda. So when we first went into business, we preset the agenda, knowing that, conflict can be awkward, like we just talked about, knowing that we really liked each other as friends, so we don't want to upset each other. We thought, right, what's the structure that we have in place? So even if it is an awkward conversation, we're able to open up. And the way we did that, and now it's so organic, and we do have our monthly partnership meetings, et cetera. But, what we had initially was in the agenda, what's working well, what's not working well. Is there any area that we need to discuss? We actually had prompts in the agenda to be able to encourage that open communication, particularly in the early days, I think, when you're just really starting to get to know what does this partnership look like. And so the partner meetings, the check-ins, actually think strategically about the structure of that. That's going to help lean into that vulnerability place, if that's something you do find is a little bit more challenging.
Absolutely, because it does then schedule the conversation, doesn't it? So if you don't feel comfortable picking up the phone at 7 o'clock at night to have that chat, it's like, well, we've got that Monday meeting and that's when I'm going to say something, because the space is provided for that. Amazing. All right, I'm just going to recap the 5. So the first one is on the same page with your vision and values. The second one is the good old 49-51 split, which is just a lifesaver. The third one, the partnership agreement. So making sure you have something formal and legal to make sure that it covers you, each of you. The fourth, probably the biggest really, is the communication and the relationship. And then the fifth is having the structure to ensure that you continually touch point again, at least monthly, as directors, as co-directors. So in our one action, because we always wrap up with what's the one action that we can take within the next 24 hours to ensure that perhaps we break a cycle of the partnership not working. Or it could be breaking the cycle of working on your own and starting a partnership. So what we'd love you to do is, if you are in a partnership or you're considering it with somebody else, the first step is to send them this podcast so they can listen to it. And then once you've both listened to it, we would invite you to schedule a coffee date where you sit down and you have a talk about these 5 different key areas and how you're traveling against each of them, and maybe some areas that if you haven't implemented it, you could start that now. So that, my friends, is wrapping up and making sure that you take something away and you take some action on this, because we truly believe there is so much value in being in partnership with somebody else, and we love working together, and we know other people can have that wonderful outcome for themselves and their businesses by getting this nailed. Final words, Nick?
Final words would be, this is actually, hearing you reflect that, this is actually, I'm feeling and seeing and hearing the masculine and the feminine coming into that. So there's the structure piece, there's the logical piece, and then there's the flow, there's the relationship building. So really bring that, you've got to bring it, have the structure, be sensible, legal, etc., and allow the time and opportunity to build a real relationship as well throughout the whole process, and have some fun with it. Would love to hear how you go. Thanks so much for listening today.
See you later.